crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Got a really interesting topic of conversation having to do with motorcycle and motorcycle safety. So if you know someone who loves their Harley, and give them a call, tell them that they're going to want to tune in tonight because it's all about motorcycles and what you need to know. Now, kind of some ground rules tonight, how you can join our conversation. We'd love to have you do so. All throughout the program, there are ways you can call, text, email. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen. Also, attorneys from Hollis Wright are standing by live all throughout the program tonight. So that's a free, confidential, and off-air conversation. Just give them a call at 844-529-8255 or locally 205-324-3600. Leading our conversation from the firm of Hollis, Wright, Carter Clay. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I hope you had a great week.
I did indeed. Thank you, sir.
Good. I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to be covering here tonight. We're going to be talking about motorcycle accidents, which is really just a subset under the broader umbrella of motor vehicle accidents. A lot of times we see car versus car accidents or truck versus car, but when you have a motorcycle involved in an accident, it really brings some unique aspects to it, especially involving the injuries that are often sustained by the motorcycle operator. And so we're going to talk about that tonight, and we're going to have a great guest with us. I'm very excited to have Mark Petro here with us from the Petro Law Firm. He's been practicing a long time in this area, specializing in handling motorcycle accidents and really motor vehicle accidents as well. But Mark, thank you so much for joining us here this evening.
Hey, I appreciate you guys inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, great.
First time I've been on TV like this.
Well, you look great. You do. Tell us a little bit about your legal practice and how you got involved in handling motorcycle accident cases.
Yeah, originally here from Birmingham. Graduated from Cumberland School of Law in 1989, so I've been practicing here since 1989, always doing personal injury, specializing in any type of motor vehicle accident, be it cars, like you said, cars on cars, or trucks on cars, or motorcycles. So here tonight to talk about motorcycle litigation, which I'm very passionate about, and glad to be here.
Well, great. Well, thanks again for joining us. I noticed that you brought some materials with you. Tell the viewers a little bit about what you brought with you and why you did something like this to put it together.
Yeah, so I brought a book that I wrote about a year ago, Your Legal Guide to Motorcycle Injury Compensation, and I brought it here, and it's available if you go to my website, and you can download it or you can request a hard copy, and I'll be glad to send it to you. And I also brought a Win a Harley flyer. I'm a member of an organization called NAML, and that stands for the National Academy of Motorcycle Injury Lawyers. And this fall we are having a drawing for Win a Harley, and it's a 2019 FXDR 114 Harley motorcycle. So you can also go to my website, and there's a place for you to register to win this Harley, and it'll be October the 31st when that drawing takes place.
Well, great. That's exciting. And of course, we will also, on the Hollis Wright Facebook page, we will put a link so that people can have access to the guide as well, because I know there's a lot of useful information in there.
Yeah, it is. It was written to help motorcyclists if they are unfortunate to be in an accident. It's a guide for them to know what to do, know what to expect, know what not to do. You know, the question comes up, should I talk to an adjuster? Should I sign a release without talking to a lawyer? So it answers most of the common questions that an injured motorcyclist would have following an accident.
Right. Well, what are some of the unique aspects or differences between handling an accident involving a motorcyclist or motorcycle operator and just your typical car versus car type accident?
Yeah, so very different because of obviously the motorcycle, two wheels, no protection other than a helmet and some safety gear as far as your clothing. So the motorcyclist is exposed to a lot of things that a driver of a car is not exposed to.
Yeah.
Visibility is a big issue with drivers, with other cars, trucks not being able to see a motorcyclist. You have road hazards that a motorcyclist would be, more, that would be more of a risk or hazard than it would be for a car or a truck driver. Weather conditions would be more of a risk hazard to a motorcyclist than they would be to a driver. So there's a lot of big differences between obviously driving a motorcycle and driving a car or a truck.
Yeah, and so these are hazards that could cause a single event type motorcycle accident even without having an impact with another motor vehicle.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, talk a little bit about, I know that I found this in my practice, I don't know if you found it in your practice as well, but is there sort of an underlying prejudice or bias out there that exists against motorcycle operators? And I want to say against them from operating a motorcycle, but if they're involved in an accident, people sort of say, well, they assume the risk of injury because they were on a motorcycle.
Right, that's so true. There is a bias against motorcyclists. Like you said, a lot of people think, well, you're driving a motorcycle, it's risky, so you assume the risk, and therefore, if you're involved in an accident, you kind of get what you ask for.
Yeah.
But, motorcyclists, they have the same rights as a driver of a car or a truck.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They have every right to be out on that roadway, and they have every right to expect that other operators, whether they're in a car or a motorcycle, will abide by the laws. And I know that when we're doing jury selection, I know that if I've got a motorcycle client as a plaintiff in the case who was injured, I know that's a big part of what I spend during my jury selection is identifying those individuals out there that might have some prejudice or bias against my client.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, striking a jury in a motorcycle injury case is a lot different than striking a jury in a car or truck wreck case.
Yep. What have you seen recently or within your past that might kind of highlight an example of representing a motorcycle operator who was involved in an accident that you think would be important to the viewers?
Yeah, so one of the first motorcycle cases I handled about 30 years ago was a single event wreck where a motorcyclist was driving down the road, and one of the local utility companies had done some work and had left for the evening the job site, left a huge hole in the road with a lot of rock and other debris. And my client came up on the hole and saw it, and there was no warning sign, and had to lay his bike down and was severely injured. And the crazy thing was that, we filed a lawsuit and started doing discovery and found out that this particular utility did not have any type of policy or procedure about leaving out any type of warning.
Wow.
to a car or to a motorcyclist.
Wow. Well, I think we're about to go to a break. When we come back from the break, I want to talk about some more examples of incidents involving motorcycle operators, and it's a great place to stop off.
We'll take a break right here. I hear those phones going off. We're getting calls,
right.
texts, emails. We love that. We love to hear from you. And don't forget those attorneys from Hollis, Wright. They are standing by live all throughout the program tonight. 844-529-8255 or 205-324-3600. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple. Provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
If you need help after an accident, contact the team of attorneys at Hollis Wright.
Our law firm proudly supports Alabama high school athletics as well as the AL.com Hollis Wright Player of the Week.
Be sure to vote every week in the AL.com Hollis Wright Player of the Week fan poll.
Be sure to go vote this week for your favorite player.
Welcome back into the show. Appreciate you being with us tonight. Hey, before we get back into the conversation, don't forget, attorneys from Hollis Wright standing by. 844-529-8255 or locally 205-324-3600. Carter?
Yeah, well, also wanted to take an opportunity to remind the viewers of the AL.com high school football fan poll. Every week, AL.com lists out a number of football players in the area that had exceptional statistics or performances on Friday night. It gives the not only the viewers of our show, but just people out there interested in high school football an opportunity to vote for their favorite player based on the performance that they had. And I would just encourage everybody to go to AL.com and vote in the Hollis Wright football fan poll.
Yeah, it's awesome. Love the way you guys are in the community. Another cool way for y'all to do so.
Well, we're trying. We try to do it. But at any rate, Mark prompted me to recall an event or a case that I had several years ago that was very similar to the one that he mentioned, involving a motorcycle operator that was out in sort of a rural area of Mobile County. And he was riding with another individual who was on a separate motorcycle behind him. And he comes around a curve in the roadway, and there is dirt that's kind of laid out, wet dirt in the roadway, and he hits it and loses control, fishtails, loses control, crosses over the center line and gets hit head on by a pickup truck coming in the opposite direction, and he got killed. Wow. And what we found out is that adjacent to where that accident happened, there was a residential development project going on, and they did not put up proper silt fencing. And there had been a just downpour of rain the night before, a couple of days before really, that had washed dirt out into the roadway and left it there, and that's what he hit, was that particular dirt. And so we had a claim against the developers and contractors for improperly kind of setting up the construction zone that they had. And the reason that I wanted to mention that, and really, Mark, it goes back to what you talked about, is that is an example of where a car or a truck would have just gone right through that and likely never experienced any problems at all. But a motorcycle being on two wheels is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, so true, so true. So yeah, there are a lot of cases that involve, where debris has been left in the road from a construction site, like both of our examples.
Yeah. Yeah, David, I think we've got a question.
Yeah, good question. We love your questions, so keep them coming into us. The question we've got here is about the age to operate a motorcycle in Alabama. Who can operate a motorcycle in the state of Alabama?
Yeah, so you have to be 16 years old to operate a motorcycle, a large motorcycle. Okay. And you have to have, through the state, you have to have an M designation. And what you're required to do is take an additional test. It's like a 30-question test to test your knowledge with respect to motorcycle safety and the rules of the road. Now, someone 14 years old can get a license to operate what I would call, a mini bike. That's what we used to call
it. Like a moped or something?
Like a moped. So technically, it's called a motor-driven cycle. Okay. So technically, that bike is under 200 pounds, has less than 5 horsepower, and has an engine smaller than 150 cc's. So if you're 14 to 16, you can have a permit license for that type of smaller bike. But to operate a larger bike, you have to be 16 or older and have the M designation.
So my son is 14 and a half. And unfortunately, he is aware of that law. And he likes to ride dirt bikes, and he's had a dirt bike for several years, and he's informed me that he can get his operator's license to operate a motorcycle, to which I have flatly said no. But there are those occasions where I can't get to him to take him to and from, and he reminds me that if he had his moped license, that he would be able to operate it. But I am not giving in. He's not getting a motorcycle or a moped to be able to operate. But that actually hit home with me because, you think about a 14-year-old kid, who wouldn't want to have a moped to be able to go from point A to point B? I would have wanted it.
No doubt.
My parents weren't getting it for me, though.
Yeah, my neighbors had a moped, but we just drove it around their yard. It was a blast.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about wearing a helmet. So what is the current state of the law in Alabama relative to wearing a helmet and operating a motorcycle?
Yeah, so a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion about helmet laws, but Alabama is a law that requires the use of a helmet. To operate a motorcycle, you have to have a helmet.
And does that also, I guess, apply to passengers on there as well?
Yes, that would apply to passengers as well. And then if you have a passenger, the law says that you have to have foot pegs in order to have a passenger, so the passenger can put their feet safely on the pegs.
Yeah, I don't know that I ever identified this individual, but we covered motorcycle accidents many months ago, or maybe a couple of years ago on the show, and actually had somebody call in during the show, had an off-air confidential conversation with them, and he actually asked if a 1-year-old passenger was required to wear a helmet. so I thought that was a bit of an odd question, but to which I said, yeah, you need to have a helmet, and I don't know that it would be a good idea for a 1-year-old to be riding as a passenger, but...
Yeah, it would be prudent for that 1-year-old to have a helmet. It would not be prudent for that 1-year-old to be on the motorcycle.
Another question we've got here. I've seen many times where motorcycles ride side by side in one lane. Can they do that?
Yes, they can do that. In Alabama, motorcycles can ride two abreast in the same lane.
Okay.
It's maybe not the safest thing to do.
Right.
The safest thing to do would probably be to have a little bit of distance with one motorcycle in front of the other. But it is legal in Alabama to drive two abreast in the same lane. Now, it's not legal to what we call split lane drive, where you've seen the motorcycles. It's illegal in Alabama, and I've seen it in Alabama, but I've seen it in other states where it is legal, where the motorcycles just weaving in and out of traffic. That's illegal here.
Well, and one thing I think that probably lends credence to some of the bias maybe that's out there is those what they call crotch rockets or whatever.
Yeah.
You see those people sometimes doing some crazy stuff on the interstates and highways, and so...
But, you know, they don't represent all the motorcycle drivers.
Absolutely not. Most of the time, you see people on a Harley Davidson, they're doing it the right way.
Right.
They're experienced drivers. But one thing that I have noticed is they wear a different type of helmet. They wear those kind of skull cap helmets. Are those legal to have as helmets?
Yeah, those are legal. Yeah, so the requirements with respect to a helmet is that it has to have the hard shell, it has to have the padding, and it has to have the chin strap. And if it meets those qualifications, you know, it's legal in Alabama.
Now, of course, those helmets don't have the visor on it, and I've actually represented some people that were wearing those types of helmets, and they sustained some pretty bad facial injuries, so you kind of have to have a little give and take there.
Yeah, it would be advised to have a face shield, but, you know, I would think they are wearing at least some safety goggles, safety glasses. You mentioned Harley drivers. They are very safe drivers, and there's two dealerships here, one in Trussville, one in Pelham, and they both have periodic driving schools, safety schools for all experienced drivers, from the novice to the really good driver. So they're good about educating themselves on proper driving techniques and safety.
Right.
All right, let us step aside. Our final break of the evening. We're stepping aside here. Just a few minutes remaining in the show. So if you want to get in touch with us, get on that phone and get at it. Stay tuned. We've got the final segment of The Attorneys. That's on the way right after this quick break.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright. In court, attorneys are not allowed to tell juries certain things. For example, we cannot talk about a defendant's net worth, meaning the defendant's ability, resources, or insurance to pay a verdict. In this week's Legal 4-in-1, we're answering the question, why can't lawyers talk about a defendant's net worth to a jury? Now, Rule 403 of the Alabama Rules of Evidence states, in part, relevant evidence may be excluded if its probative value is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice. Long-standing Alabama cases have held that the net worth of a defendant falls under this catch-all rule and is to be excluded. The reasoning behind the rule is that if a jury knows a defendant is wealthy, then the jury might award more money to the plaintiff. And this goes one step further. If an attorney makes any remarks that suggest the defendant is responsible because he is wealthy or rich and the plaintiff is poor, that can be grounds for a new trial. If you're ever on a jury, the reality in our state is this. In almost every lawsuit that goes to trial, the attorneys representing both the plaintiff and the defendant have already looked at whether there's sufficient insurance coverage or assets to satisfy a verdict. Most likely, the parties would not pursue a civil lawsuit if damages could not be paid after a jury returns a verdict. So even though lawyers cannot mention the net worth of a defendant during trial, there likely are resources available to pay a verdict in court. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. And remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. And as always, thanks for watching The Attorneys right here on WBTN 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. This is our final break, our final segment rather, just over 7 minutes remaining. So if you want to take advantage of that opportunity to speak with attorneys standing by live, give them a call at 844-529-8255 or locally 205-324-3600. Carter?
Yeah, Dave, we've got a viewer question here, and the viewer question involves an individual riding his motorcycle through a neighborhood, and a dog came out of the yard and started chasing the motorcycle, caused an accident, and the individual got injured. And the question is, do I have a claim, and if so, against whom?
Yeah, you would have a claim against the owner of the dog, the homeowner. We have leash laws here in Alabama, so the leash laws would protect the injured driver from being attacked by a dog that runs out on the road. And especially where you have a situation where a dog is known to chase after cars or motorcyclists, there would be even more heightened duty on behalf of that dog owner. And you would go after the dog owner. Hopefully the dog owner has homeowner's insurance that usually would provide coverage to the homeowner in that situation.
Yeah, and that's important for the viewers to understand that in a lot of context or a lot of situations, while the individual who you're trying to file a claim against, maybe their automobile coverage wouldn't apply because they weren't operating a motor vehicle, but you are the owner of a dog, you're responsible for controlling that dog. That is something that homeowners insurance should pick up and cover. And I've actually got that exact case that we're prosecuting right now on behalf of an individual that had that experience.
Yeah, so if it's if it's a dog bite case or a dog chase after a motorcycle and cause a wreck case, yeah, you would go after the homeowner's insurance.
And again, just to illustrate, that is an example of a situation where in all likelihood probably wouldn't cause somebody driving an automobile to have a wreck.
Yeah.
But when you're on two wheels, a motorcycle, that is a risk.
Yeah, that is a risk. But again, the motorcyclist has the same rights to that road as a car driver or a truck driver.
Yeah. Dog, got to control your dog.
You have to control your dog.
Another question we've got here, and we do love getting your questions. I was a passenger on a motorcycle and I was injured in a crash due to the negligent driving of the operator. Can I bring a lawsuit for my injuries?
Great question.
Well, for simple negligence, no. Here in Alabama, we have a statute called the Guest Statute, and that law was written years ago to protect a driver of a vehicle from negligence claims made by a passenger. So what you would have to show, something beyond negligence. You would have to show recklessness on behalf of the driver, speeding, drinking and driving, pulling wheelies or whatever, just really reckless conduct on behalf of the driver.
Yeah, the only exception to that would be, and we really don't have enough information from the question, but you could potentially have a claim for simple negligence against the operator if the operator was taking the passenger. In other words, if the passenger paid them money or provided them gas money or some type of compensation to take them from point A to point B, that could potentially get you around the guest passenger statute. But otherwise, Mark is absolutely correct. You're going to have to show some type of reckless driving or reckless operation of the motorcycle, and perhaps they were under the influence or something like that.
I think we have time for one more question.
Right.
All right. The question here, I was injured in a motorcycle accident, but I wasn't wearing a helmet. Can I still recover damages from the other driver?
Well, would always recommend wearing a helmet, but I can see it, if you were not wearing a helmet and you suffered head injuries, I think it would be hard to argue to a jury and a judge that you should receive compensation for a head injury when Alabama law requires a helmet. But if it was an injury to another part of the body, I think that wouldn't have any effect on it.
Yeah, obviously, if you broke your arm, the motorcycle helmet's not going to prevent your arm from breaking in those situations. But Mark's right. I mean, that's kind of one of those situations where bias or prejudice could certainly creep in, because not only are you on a motorcycle, you made the conscious decision not to be wearing a motorcycle helmet and kind of subjecting you to that type of risk. And if you've got a head injury, it may very well be pretty tough. I mean, you could argue, I guess, potentially that, well, if I was wearing a helmet, I still would have sustained a head injury, but that's a very tough argument, a very tough sell to make, and there'd be a lot of medical proof that would go into that.
Right. All righty. And I think we can fit one more in about statute of limitations.
Sure.
Is there one with?
Yeah, for any type of personal injury claim, it's 2 years. 2 years from the date of the accident. What we mean by statute of limitations is that you have 2 years from the date of the accident for the claim to either be resolved or a lawsuit to be filed. If 2 years passes without the claim being settled or a lawsuit filed, then it's forever barred.
Yeah, and there may be some what we call notices of claims that would apply if, let's say, for instance, it's a pothole or some type of defect in the roadway that's controlled by a city or a county and you're trying to make a claim against those entities. Mm-hmm. There's some notices of claims where you have to put them on notice before the 2 years.
Okay. Believe it or not, our time is almost gone. Just a couple of minutes remaining. I want to give both of you the opportunity for a final thought. And Mark, if you would, you go first, please.
Yeah, one thing I would like to talk about before we close is the importance of motorcyclists making sure that they have sufficient coverage. And what I mean by coverage is uninsured motorist coverage or underinsured motorist coverage. I often see situations where motorcyclists are involved in an accident with either an uninsured driver or a driver who does not have sufficient limits. Check with your insurance agent to make sure that you have sufficient coverage, and you will find that it's really not that expensive to buy additional coverage. It's something the insurance companies don't really push, but make sure you have sufficient coverage.
Yeah, and we talk a lot on the show about people just driving automobiles and pickup trucks having uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, but it's particularly important if you're operating a motorcycle because of the risk of such a catastrophic injury, whereas the person that caused the accident may very well not have enough coverage to compensate you. And the final thing I just wanted to mention is I would just encourage everybody to go to Mark Petro's website or come to our Hollis Wright Facebook page and access this motorcycle injury compensation guide. There's a wealth of information in there that people can tap into.
Yeah, an awesome resource.
As well as register to win the Harley.
That's right.
That may be even more important.
That's right. Awesome. Gentlemen, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. Really interesting conversation tonight. Appreciate them being with us and appreciate you being with us as well. As always, even though we're wrapping things up, if you got a question, email. If you get in touch with the firm of Hollis Wright, they will get back in touch with you. You can count on that for sure. Thanks so much for the time. We'll look for you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.